We'll go ahead and call our October the 4th meeting to order. I want to welcome everybody out tonight. If you would, let's all stand for the pledge and invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pastor Michelle Foster Beckenleg want to say our invocation.
Let us pray. Holy and loving God, we thank you for the beauty of this day and the gift of this evening. As we gather for this meeting, we pray for all of our commissioners. Through your Spirit, enable us to attentively listen to one another, speak with love and compassion, and make decisions rooted in your wisdom for all of your people. May we be found faithful in our work and always in your service. In the name of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, we pray. Amen.
Thank you. We appreciate that. No changes in the agenda, is it, Drew? No changes. No changes in the agenda. Your motion for approval?
So moved.
Second. Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Trust everybody's looked over the minutes from 7-6 and 7-19. If so, everybody agrees, I'll take a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Second.
Motion and second. All in favor? 5-0. Now we'll open up the floor for public comment. If anyone has anything you want to talk about, feel free to come forward. Seeing no movement, we'll close the public comment side. Open the floor for public hearing on Siesta Ridge Lane. Wendy, please.
Evening. I have one road for approval tonight. If I can get it out of here. We've had a submission for Siesta Ridge Lane. It's been submitted by Xavier and Monique Iglesias. They're putting two structures on this drive at least. It's off of Highway 221 in the Piney Creek Fire District and the Prathers Creek Township.
All's well with the fire departments, the fire chief, and all that. Do you have any questions?
No. Just in the packet, the paperwork we received, the name petition that was actually signed, actually a different name. Or is that just a discrepancy? It says Siesta. It looks like Ranch Lane, how it's listed on there.
Just be.
Looks like Ridge was listed.
I think it's just where they put Paradise Ranch Lane as a second choice. They may have put Ranch.
This is.
Yeah, Ridge is what
their
their
request. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I think that's what. Didn't even notice that, but yeah, they want the Ridge.
Open the floor for a motion.
We make a motion since.
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing at this time and open the floor for a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the Siesta Ridge Lane, I believe it is. Yes. Okay, motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Not all in favor? 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Move on down to presentations to the board. 2021 Agricultural Fair Update, Mr. Travis Dalton.
Evening, Commissioners. As y'all know, we ended our fair last night about 6. And it's still a pretty short road for us. We hadn't had a chance to even have a meeting to count, but just want to get to y'all and let you know how it went because you made your donation. Rough numbers, around 4,000 people, because with the free tickets, sponsor tickets, free tickets we give to the school for a certain grade that we did have a drawing, we had between 3,300 and 3,400 paying people through the gate, and the rest we're just estimating a little over 4,000. In the Black Building, we had 250 entries in the exhibit hall of different vegetables, fruits, pumpkins. The livestock barn, we had 92 head of stock shown by 62 different exhibitors. Saturday for the race, the people we're estimating right at a little over 2,000 people on Saturday and Saturday night for the figure 8 race carnival rides.
You aren't including that 2,000 in the other
Total,
figures?
yes.
That's separate?
No, it's all together. The 4,000's total.
Okay.
Estimate from the gate was around $17,000 for the entire thing, but we still hadn't paid out all of our prize pool, sponsorship. To the fire department for help with the race and to cover the rides.
Looked like we done pretty good for the first year.
A lot of compliments, a lot of thank yous for having it back, and a lot of kids didn't even know we had one, or used to.
People appreciate the $5 fee. There's a lot of folks came a few times, and that was good. The whole thing was just a good success.
We went through with the pumpkin chunking part up top. We reused a lot of pumpkins by going down and reloading the bins and taking them back up. It didn't bust. But on top of that, we went through 14 bins of pumpkins of people thought. Kids enjoyed that.
It was good just to be out there and hear all them kids screaming and hollering and having a good time. That hadn't been heard in that park in a.
And I talked to the guy from the carnival company, and he said, first year, small town like this, he said that was a great turnout.
Drew's from a right good area. All around surrounding counties, people were there, and that was another plus.
I met one guy there that was for the figure 8 race, which he knows people in the county. That's how he got to contact. But he drove from Wilmington and lives in Wilmington and come to do the figure 8 race with his son.
It was a good success. A real
On our
good success.
advertising for it, our Facebook main ag advice the staff to handle that. Come. Much all I have at this moment till we can have our board meeting. And
Certainly appreciate the update. That's a good positive note.
thank you all.
Thank you. Next up, North Carolina DOT follow-up. Mr. Mike Pettyjohn. Thanks for coming up tonight.
Yes, sir. Good evening. Hope each one of you's doing well. I know I've had some folks here, a couple meetings recently, so I'm not totally sure where you want to start, so I'll just let y'all ask you questions on what you got. Now, hope I don't repeat a lot of what they said, but I may be some, obviously.
Appreciate you coming, to the night meeting. I live out 221. I've traveled that road more years than my gray hair talks about. Speed limit's always been 55 miles an hour.
Right.
I came to town one morning, it was 55. I went back at 12 o'clock and it changed just like that to 45. My question, one of the questions is, after all those years, why did it just change without even notifying anybody that there might be a change where the public could have expressed an opinion or the commissioners could have expressed an opinion?
Well, I'll be the first to admit we probably didn't communicate what was going on. The issue behind the speed ramp reduction actually came about, and I'll be honest, for years in this division, we've always basically, these rural roads or rural primaries, even as 221 and 93 are, let the road itself, the nature of the road can kind of set its own speed limit, even because it's at the statutory speed limit of 55, unless it's posted otherwise. However, in 2009, that was the last update of the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. And in that, and that's something we have to adopt, each state does, it's the national standard, and they had a curve compliance measure in that. So we've had to, throughout the state, look, and also with state legislation in 2015 required us to look at so many of these roads. So there's like a review from a computer level, and it'll identify certain roads we got to go look at. And these came up. So my staff, Mr. Woody, who came first, he had to go out and take a look at it. And then at that point, he has to set it based on the standards that we have to go by. And basically, a road like 93, 221, you start out at looking at it at 45, and you adjust it one way or the other. But after looking at it, the things that make up the road, number of driveways, the curvatures, all that, 45 was the appropriate speed limit. We should have done a better job, because we've had a lot of these that have come up, not just here in Allegheny, but throughout. And we do need to do a better job to communicate what's going on. I'll be the first to admit that. But that's what triggered this.
Okay, the second part of the question is, what can be done to change it back the way that it should be?
Well, the problem is, now that it's been identified, we've had to take a look at it. It's just kind of like building standards. If you got something in that standard that's there, whether you totally agree with it or not, you still got to enforce it. We can't really just arbitrarily go set it back, because the study shows that 45 is the appropriate speed limit. That way, because now, based on those characteristics, that don't mean that you can't do faster on there. I mean, yes, that's the legal limit, but it is the limit that is safe for the average drivers, and that's what we've got to look at.
Living on 221, from Twin Oaks Store to 113, there's 2 passing zones.
Right.
And you've taken both of those out. You can't pass somebody on those short straightaways doing 45 miles an hour. So you're either stuck behind somebody that's doing 30 or a tractor or whatever, and you can't pass. That doesn't quite seem fair. And if we listen to the last 2 people that came from DOT, they talked about safety.
Right.
Which is a good catch-all phrase to cover everybody. If safety is such a big reason, why don't they widen the road and take some of the curves out?
Well, I mean, 221 between Twin Oaks and 113, actually that has been widened actually during my career. Actually, one of the first things I helped do was slope stake on that stretch of road out there. So there has been some improvements from what it used to be. But you bring up a good point. You got people that are doing 30 miles per hour. Speed differential is one of your biggest safety hazards there is. When you got somebody doing 30 and then somebody coming up behind them 55, whether it be a rural road or interstate, speed differential, that is one of our biggest concerns. So, and it is hard to get past the zone on some of these roads like that. So,
My question is, I'm on the upper end of 93 up there, and there's 2 passing zones there, but regardless of the passing zones,
right,
we're 45 all the way down 93.
right,
But you can cut off a very secondary road and it's still 55.
yeah.
If safety is a primary issue, why didn't we start on the secondary roads and stop slowing things down on the primary?
Well, we got a bunch of them to look at too. So, I mean, the truth is, I prefer that we didn't have to do this. I'd prefer that we weren't even having to have this conversation, but to follow the standards, I mean, we're basically have to, because we got to follow what the manual says, and when we have to look at them, that's what triggers that we got to set it at the rate that, because there's accident out there then they're going to look at that. What's the speed limit? What should it be? Just for instance, anytime there's a fatality, anywhere in North Carolina, we have a group that goes and reviews that road. So it could be anything from reduce the speed limit to other kind of measures that they feel like needs to be. And that's all taken in consideration. And if we was to bump it back up when we've already determined that it should be at 45, first accidents you have, that's a problem.
We've only had 4 a year for the last 5 years, according to some of you people
Yeah.
there.
And I mean, like I say, I wish we weren't into this. I wish they hadn't have got into it, but 2009, that's the last update of the MUTCD is what we call it, Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. And that's what triggered all this. And then there was some, regarding secondary roads, there was a presentation to the state legislature in 2015, and then we was obligated to look at, I think it's 1,000 miles a year of this type issue. And that's going to get a lot of the secondary roads. But on secondary roads, if the biggest request we get is reduce speed limits on secondary roads. And traditionally, we don't reduce them a lot, but that is the biggest request we get from the public.
You know, you got caution signs on every curve, and that's
Yeah.
there for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, and
And if you didn't reduce the speed limit, you'd even have to have more caution signs. So,
it's just funny
Yeah.
that this thing's come about, and it's been,
Yeah.
all my life, it's been 55 mile an hour.
I understand what you're
You
saying.
understand
I
your
understand you.
job. We respect your
Yep,
job.
Yep.
There's gonna be a lot of road rage and take a lot of goody powders if everything goes 45 miles.
Okay.
While you were talking about this, is it possible, I know you work for the government and they never make a mistake, but is it possible the government may have made a mistake on this traffic reduction speed limit on these 2 roads? I know it's probably you didn't make a mistake, but is it worth re-looking at?
Well, I mean, my guys have kind of, like I say, they've been up here a couple of times. They've looked at it. I mean, I don't mind having them look at it again, but, you know.
What they're looking at it again, curtail, they just go out there and drive it again.
Well, I mean, and I'm not the most expert on this, but, you know, it has to do with the curves, number of driveways, just the things that make up that road, what it is. That's what they're looking at. Part of it's even what speeds you can take curves in, where they've got ways to measure and that. So that's part of it.
Does this mean that 21 and 18 are next?
I don't see 21 with the upgrades we've done on it from Roaring Gap all the way to the state line. I mean, I don't see any, don't even know that will be looked at, because I don't think there's anything in there that would trigger it. 18, we're trying to make sure we don't have to look at 18.
And the
I
next
mean-
question is, the bypass out here, we've had accident after accident after accident. The new Grandview Drive part, as well as the 18 part too. So what is going to be done about that?
Well, I know that Grandview part came up last meeting, and what we've been able to find, working with the chief and all, is we got 5 recorded accidents out there in the last 3 years. 1 in 19, 1 in 20, and 3 in 21. And one of those is just a rear end, so I don't know what you do about that. I mean, that's anything that could happen at any intersection. Just driver inattention. I mean, I'm familiar with, I was a county engineer for 10 years here, so yeah, if I was going down Grandview Drive, I think there's a lot of familiarity, because you look at all these accident reports, every one of them is a native here in the county. So I think it's just one of them things they're not got used to it yet. It should help. I know I use the example. They put up a signal on my path to work about 20 years ago. And I still caught myself for about 4 or 5 years after I'd go through there looking back, I didn't run that thing, did I? because that is something that happens when you have a change, and that was a change. Me going there to the maintenance office or other people, I think that's what's caused that. I mean, and I don't know that there's a good solution to that. And of course, at 21, we have done some things to, last December, I think it was, to try to help that. We talked about always stop, but, you know, at that time, the town asked us, instead of doing that, reduce the speed limit, which we did, so. And we did refresh some of the rumble strips out here last week, and at Grandview, we are going to put some mini skips right there along the edge. That way people can go between the stop bar and those skips and get a little better sight distance looking back towards 21.
Any further questions? John, Mark?
So here's something that I brought up to the manager, and we spoke about this last week. So a concern that I have, it doesn't have to do with the bypass or anything, except for in the sense that a lot of truckers are still using Main Street and coming down, and they're not using the bypass. Maybe they're not aware, something, they're just not being notified. And the problem that we're having is that a lot of them are using the turn right at the intersection of 18 and 21 or Main Street, and they're now turning there instead
Don't want
of taking the bypass and then coming up 18 or, you know, taking the bypass all the way around. So we're still having that, and that's causing a lot of problems with traffic because people that are on the other part of the road are having to back up multiple people in the lanes that are ready to either go across or turn. So I don't know if there's a way to let them know either through GPS, signage. I don't know what it would take for them to understand that we have that bypass and that it's there for them to be able to use so that they don't have to turn in such a tight, confined space.
Yeah, we don't want that either. I mean, and that's why the bypass is 21 business truck route or 21 truck route. You know, and I don't know why they're not seeing those signs, because they should be. I mean, and I'm assuming we don't directly, you know, maps on Google. We don't directly do that, but I would assume by now they've got that in there. I mean, I haven't looked, but they should be routing them the truck route by now. I mean, I know it takes a little while, but they're pretty good about getting it on there. So I'm not exactly sure, or if it's something to do with the dispatch of the truckers' dispatch. But there again, most everybody uses Google Maps anymore when they travel, so.
I can sit at Becca's on Main Street and watch 4 or 5 within an hour period of time that are still using Main Street and turning either 18 south or north or otherwise.
I don't doubt you, I just can't tell you why. Yeah.
Anybody, any further questions? Mr. Pedron, we appreciate you coming up and talking with us and figure us out a plan to get back to 55.
All right, thank you.
Take care of Charlotte first.
Well, I stay away from Charlotte, so that's south of my area, so, all right, thank
you,
y'all.
sir.
Thank you.
Next up, Dr. Chad Beasley, Allegheny High School.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
How are y'all doing? Good. I just want to say thank you for giving me an opportunity to just come and speak a few minutes tonight. We, back at our budget meeting, and some of our other meetings too, we've talked about the need for a high school in Allegheny County. You know, we've got a high school now that's over 50 years old. We've just had earthquake damage recently to that, and with the tremors, it continues to grow, and there's opportunities coming available if we can ever get a budget passed out of the General Assembly. And but at our last budget meeting, I spoke about bringing our architect that we've done some design with before, and was the architect on our renovations at Glade and down at Sparta. So I'm kind of here about two things. I want to let you know that there's a needs-based funding grant that's going to be available coming up in the budget. But also, it's time, if we're going to do this, we really got to start planning for it. You know, it's not a bring an architect in, draw some blueprints, get some sketches, do the surveys, start building. It's a process, and as I've heard John Irwin say, we don't need to leave this to our grandkids to take care of. We need to take care of it. And so that's kind of why I'm here tonight, maybe to talk about a special appropriations, because I am meeting with the architect on the 18th, and we're going to start looking at some things up there. He's already been up one time to just to get some ideas. But just talk a little bit about the needs-based public school capital funds. I gave you a handout there. It's got just a few things on it. I'll just highlight a couple of things. It does say in here that the application deadline is September the 15th. That's before we didn't know we weren't going to have a budget out of Raleigh yet, but but I have spoken with someone, and so after the budget is passed, we're still available to apply for those grants. We are a Tier 2 county right now. We were a Tier 1 for a while, but we're a Tier 2 county right now, which also gives us an opportunity to apply for this grant. And the projects must be for new school buildings, which this would be, and it would be defined as new facility construction. And only projects that address critical deficiencies will be considered. So I think we've got a good opportunity here for this high school with these grants, with the age of the high school, with us being a Tier 2 county, and with the upgrades that really need to happen at the high school. So I'm just going to flip over to page 2 there. Like I said, this application is just not something that we're going to come to the commissioners to. It's got to be agreed upon between the county commissioners and the school board. And if we proceed with this grant, if we proceed with this funding, this application, it has to be signed by, like I said, the school board, as long as with the county commissioners. It says if a construction project is not started by a previous grant award, we can also apply for additional funding. And you can see right there that the priorities for grant awards are counties with greater need and less ability to generate sales tax and property tax revenue, counties with a high debt-to-tax revenue ratio, the extent to which a project will address critical deficiencies in adequately serving the current and future student population, projects that will consolidate 2 or more schools into a new facility. A lot of folks are using these funds, and a lot of people hadn't taken advantage of it yet, but last year there was a couple of school systems that in small counties that built a middle school and a high school combination. And there's one school system down Jones County, you guys know where Jones County down the East Coast, actually built a K-12 school, which was able to house. That's how small they are, though. And also, we are a priority because we have not received a grant under this article in the previous 3 years. We've never received a grant under this article anyway. So, and then if we look at the last page right there, about the grant awards amounts, you can get up to $30 million for an elementary school. You can get up to $40 million for a middle school or a combination of an elementary middle school. And you can get up to $50 million for a high school. Last year, the high school funding availability was either 30 or 40. I'm not sure what it is. One nice thing about it now, the matching requirement has changed from a 2-to-1 to a 4-to-1. So for every $4 million awarded, we would only have to match $1 million of that. And that also can be used for land acquisition, but we don't need the land acquisition. We've got the land there. We've got a parking lot where it can be started in and do phases for this high school. We've also already got the athletic fields right there where we could upgrade what we need to there, where we want to do some things to the track, where we need to upgrade some bleachers, and we need to upgrade some other facilities as far as those go. So we could do that with his funds. Construction, the biggest kickback to it, construction must commence within 24 months of receiving this grant. So we've got, once you receive this grant, you've got 2 years in which you have to break ground. That's basically what it boils down to. You've got to break ground. So if push comes to shove, we could bring a dump truck load of dirt out there and put a shovel in our hands and break some grounds. That's basically what it says. But anyway, 2 years once you do this. And but it may not be used for lead cost of retirement or debt services. And I know we have some debt services. We've talked about that as well. I think we're going to be in a little better shape hopefully in the next year. I think that's what Mr. Carter's talked about. I think we need to start planning this, though, okay? We need to start looking at it. We need to go ahead and get the land surveyed. I'd like to go ahead and get some sketches drawn, get some color sketches done on this. I'd like to go ahead and start doing some planning with community members, with parents, with teachers, with students. I think we could really have a top-notch facility at a very good price with this, if we get this grant. Now, we're not guaranteed to get this grant, but I think it's a good time to apply for it. My vision as well, as far as the high school goes, is we got a fantastic career and technical education program up there. I'd love to enhance that a little bit more. We got some needs in this community to expand those things and partner with Wilkes Community College, and we could have a fantastic career and technical education center there as well with the school, be a part of the school system. It is a part of the school system now, but we could just expand it. We can upgrade our technology areas, upgrade our cafeteria. We could upgrade everything about this, and you can do a lot with $50 million. I don't know if we can build it for $50 million, though. It just depends on what we get from the architect. But I think it's time to start, and you guys asked me last time I was here to come back with some figures of what you think it might cost to look at some of that, and so I don't have an exact cost. I know it's going to cost between $15,000 and $20,000 to do some of those sketches. We're going to do some 3D looks at classroom hallways, some of those areas, and so that's kind of what I just wanted to talk to you about tonight. I think once I meet with the architect, we're going to go ahead and start working on some things, and I want to come back to you. Maybe we can have something in a couple months. I'd like to have a joint meeting with the commissioners and the school board, do another presentation for you when we get some sketches done. But I'm really here asking if you are willing to do a special appropriations to get this project started, and just take some questions if you got some questions about this. So,
Do you have any questions, Dr. Beasley?
I have a couple.
okay.
Second page, Tier 2. $1 in local funds for every dollar in grant funds. But then on the next page, it's 1 to 4.
Yeah, that changed.
So instead of looking at 25 million, we're looking at 12.5 million for
Correct.
50 million.
Yes.
CPR ready for the county manager.
But if we can build a high school for $12.5 million, that's pretty incredible.
Well, that's our share.
That's our share. I know that's our share. The rest of it's going to come from the General Assembly out of these grants.
Whenever you've got a county budget at 12.5 million,
Yeah.
That's provided we can do it for $50 million.
you know, as Everett Durson used to say, a billion here, a billion there. Pretty soon we started talking about real money.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's one thing about this I will say. With the debt service we have right now, a lot of that comes from the lottery money. It's paid off. You guys get it, and it helps pay that. So you can't use any of that money to pay the debt. You can't use any of this money to pay that debt off. But you'll still keep receiving that lottery money to keep paying off the debt that you have right now. So,
Mr. Bobby?
On the last page, the very last statement, not eligible for lottery funds, explain that part.
all right, so if you receive this grant, you're not eligible, once you get your debt paid off, to pay, you're not eligible to receive those lottery funds once you get the debt you have now paid off.
For 5 years.
For 5 years, correct. Yes, sir.
Then you fall back.
You fall back on it, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Carter? What's that agreeing with?
Very nice information.
Yeah, and that's what I'm here about, is just sharing information tonight,
Sure.
so, yeah.
Just a couple questions that I have.
Okay.
When we're talking about the priorities for grant awards, there are 5 listed, which is on, I guess, page 2.
It's two there, yeah, basically.
How many of those 5 does Allegheny County qualify for in your calculation?
They don't qualify for number 4 because we're not looking at consolidating. more schools, 2 schools into one. So we're looking at number 5 there, counties that have not received a grant on this article in the previous 3 years. To the extent, number 3, which project will address critical deficiencies in adequately serving the current and future student population? And that's more of a technology upgrade and facilities upgrade to start preparing these students for the future of our economy. I'm not sure about number 2, high debt to tax revenue ratio. I know that's changed here recently, so I don't know what that is. And I know we've had a ability to raise or generate tax revenues. At least I hear that talked about a lot in the commissioners' meeting. So I think number 1. So I think we really would qualify for about 4 out of the 5 there. And there again, it's we can apply for the grant. We may get it, we may not. We can apply for the grant in 2022 if we can. But there's a lot of school systems with a 1 to 2 match last year did not apply for these grants. So that's why the amounts have gone up, and that's why the 4 to 1 match has come up now too. And so.
And then, speaking on the 3rd page, I know you've probably got at least some idea. I mean, we've tossed around a lot of big numbers, but what kind of numbers are we looking at for the cost?
Mr. Carter, I mean, the 50 million's been thrown out. I think we can build it for less than 50 million. I don't want to get in there like we did before.
Not committing you to anything.
Yeah, I know. But, I don't want to talk about what's happened in the past or any of that, but, there's a new wing at the high school that when construction got started on that, they started cutting back on it. And they cut it back and to make some adjustments for some things. And well, it'd been nice if they hadn't have done that back then. You know what I'm saying? So to me, I like, if we're going to do it, we need to do it right. And so that's why I said right now I want to get some surveys done, look at the land. I want to get some sketches done to see what it may look like. I mean, we're talking about a year process right here just to even apply for this grant.
The only reason I asked that, and being nice, I think, when you're saying that they cut some corners or they saved some dollars.
Well, they didn't cut corners. They just made things smaller. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they made the gym smaller. They made the stage smaller. They eliminated the classrooms that were going to be underneath it. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
I know what you're saying.
yeah, and I'm not negatively saying that towards anybody.
What I'm saying is I'm trying to figure what $50 million equals in local.
I know.
Okay,
Yeah.
because that's what I had to do.
I know.
And using that 1 to 4, that's some.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, if you look at 50 million, you're looking at 20.
I made a chart on the side just to see what each $4 million equals. But I guess what the remaining question I have is, in this, talking about some appropriations for this, what kind of money are we talking about to have some of the survey, to have some of this work that you've identified?
That's what I'm talking about. And I don't have an exact cost. That's conversations I've had with the architect who's done renovations here in the past and done some building for us. And he thinks he can do it for 15 to 20,000. I mean, that's not blueprints. That's some color sketches like we've put together for the auditorium. Renderings. He's going to bring a drone in, do some top shots to get some land views. He's going to do some 3D, computer 3Ds of what some classrooms could look like, what maybe a career and technical education building would look like, and the facilities inside that, and what the hallways may look like. And I just don't know yet. I don't have an exact cost. I know it'll be over $15 million. 15,000, but I know it'll be less than 20, he said. So, but I am going to meet with him in about 2 weeks, and so our board would like to proceed at least with starting doing some drawings and sketches and renderings to get an idea and start having some more conversations with the commissioners and start doing some planning. I mean, you know, this ain't something we got to jump into right away, but we got some, I know the county's got some debt services to take care of for the school system first, so.
I'll ask my last question, and I know the answer, but I gotta ask it. For that 15 to 20 that we're talking about for this preliminary stuff, is that something that you are asking in addition, or is that something that you have within your existing budget?
We didn't have it in our budget, so
But
I'm asking for an addition. That's what I'm asking for. I'm asking for special appropriations to begin planning a project for a new high school. That doesn't have to be voted on tonight. You guys can talk about it. I'm coming to you because I think it's time we started taking a look at this.
well, if I don't ask you if you have the ability within your existing, then I'm not doing my job.
Yes.
So,
We will have the ability, but it'll take away something else. You understand what I'm saying? So that's, I mean, yeah.
Look,
About your enrollment, how has it remained pretty consistent? Has it increased over the past 5 to 8 years?
Our enrollment has been, I've looked back 10 to 15 years, it's, now, when some of the manufacturing left up here, it did drop a little bit, but since then, and it's maintained steadily. Actually, it's improved the last 3 years. Actually, we've had a rise in our student population, our ADM. So,
Mr. John.
Well, my question has been answered. My question was going to be, how much do you need to start on the preliminary planning? And somebody watch the county manager because he may fall over. This is something we've got to look at. The materials are going up, inflation's hitting. The cheapest we're going to have on, as far as the price on the building is now. But we got to see how much we're looking at right now. It may be beyond our means, but we won't know until we get to preliminaries and we can get some solid figures. Having gone through the 70s, whenever we had hyperinflation, high unemployment and everything else, I can see it coming again. I think now's the time to really look at it. Well, I have, Mr. Chairman.
You had, on the third page, there's a September, October deadline or a time frame. So you need to know something this month for the commissioners and your chairman to sign a request or an agreement?
an application? No. I'm asking for some special appropriated funds to begin planning, to put together some renderings, some sketches, some 3D, some drone work, something that we can sit down and all plan together, all right, and start getting ready to apply for this grant. Yeah, I'm not talking about applying for this grant right now, but because we've got to have some ideas about what it's going to cost and the time frame and what we really need. But we got to start sometime, and I'm looking at some special appropriations for some of those things right now.
This September, October is not really
We can't.
pressing.
Well, nobody's going to get any money right now because the budget hadn't been passed in General Assembly. So if that was the date that was set originally, but we can apply for it. If we decide we can do this, we can apply in December. We can apply in February of next year. We can apply in the springtime in June, July. You know, I'm talking about start planning now. So we're not another year or 2 years talking about it.
Mr. John.
Getting to the chase. You've got to know how much you need to apply for,
Yes.
but you cannot get that figure until we authorize you to start doing the preliminaries to get the figure.
Correct.
Okay, so we need to get on the starting line and get it going. All right. And we have to look at the county manager who gets harder than the lips on a red-headed woodpecker whenever we started looking into his budget and see if the money's there.
Don't know.
I can answer that. It's not budgeted. That's not a very hard question to answer.
Yes, go ahead.
Conversation with your architect
Yes.
to try to develop these preliminaries, information that you're trying to, any idea what kind of timeline that it's going to take them?
It'll take a couple months. Yeah, at least, maybe quicker, but at least a couple months.
I'd be in favor of certainly letting the manager see what options are. It's not budgeted, but options we can.
And so if you're able to find some, maybe we can make some adjustments in the school board's budget too, I mean, we got to do this together as a team, so, I know.
That would be a big help. to
Yeah,
everybody
yeah. I
there.
mean, I know. I mean, we don't have it in our budget either. We didn't put it in there. But at that time, I didn't know, I knew about the needs-based grants, but I didn't know they were going to turn out to be a 4-to-1 match, and I didn't know they were going to up the high schools to where you could receive $50 million for a high school too. I just found this information out not too long ago, just a couple weeks ago, so.
Mr. Evans, is that a motion?
Presentation.
Better check with the before we.
Okay. I thought that's what he was saying.
I just think
I
that
think
me
we
and
can do it by
Michael need to work
consensus.
together.
I think we
Come
could-
up with
yeah,
something.
Let them talk about it and come back with a.
I've got one more.
Okay. Bobby?
On your second page, down at the bottom, a lot of this says pending budget certification, like item number 3 and 4.
Yes.
That comes out of the General Assembly, right?
Yes, sir.
We've got we hadn't had a budget in 2 years.
Hopefully we'll have one before the end of this month.
So, that's a big question mark.
It's all a bunch of questions, to be honest with you. I know. I mean, there again, you see, they put a deadline of September the 15th. This comes out of the General Assembly.
Yeah.
This doesn't come from, I'm not just throwing these figures out there. This comes from the General Assembly. And so, they have put more money into that budget. The money will be there, even if they do pocket budgets like they've done for the last 2 years. But I really feel good about the legislators I've talked to and other superintendents I've talked to that we will have a budget this year before the end of October.
I sure hope so.
I think we will. I really do. It just depends on how much compromise can go to adjust things, so. But, those adjustments will not affect these grant awards right here. These grants are in there and we're going to be there because of the capital needs, not just of Allegheny County, but all school systems across the state of North Carolina.
That be something come out of your reserve fund? I mean, you guys got a pretty good reserve fund.
I mean, we do, but I mean, we would take it out of those funds come out of local funds. What we would have to do is look at our budget and take something away if we could,
We'd like to see us have a joint meeting in the near future.
Yeah.
Sit down and talk.
But we get some of these, I'd love to come back when I've got some renderings, some sketches, and a little bit of that's what I'd like to do. And in the meantime, if you guys can talk and Mr. Carter, I'm sorry.
Just when I'm recognized, I have one other question.
Go ahead.
A project of this scope and magnitude,
Yes, sir.
is there a procurement procedure for architects, engineers that?
Yes, there is. Yes.
So I know you'd mentioned getting
Yeah.
with, so
Yeah. Now, as far as school board goes, since we've used this architect, we can do this work with him. But then once once we get to a point of what we want, what we need, and where we're going, we'll have to send out RFPs for the architect, we'll have to send out RFPs for the construction company.
This falls below the threshold, but
Yes,
once
it
you get
does.
to that point, it allows you
Yes,
to
sir.
do proper procurement.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I've got a question for the county manager. The budget was set several months ago, and we know this, we didn't know about all this.
Correct, correct.
But if you look at our past history in finances, these budget amendments is what got us in trouble in the past.
One of the reasons.
One of several reasons. I just want to be sure that this isn't going to throw up a red flag to the state treasurer. I don't know if if they even have to know about it. But we've got a set budget, and that's what's got us back on a good track financially. And we've got to be careful about what we do in the future we've got to get up to 33% fund balance, and we're just barely halfway there. So, I mean, those are some of the problems that he's got to look at.
I know,
And,
I know.
I'll take just a personal minute here to congratulate Dr. Beasley. He's worked hard on getting his doctorate. I think you just got it a few months ago. Or
I did,
a month ago.
I defended June 29th, so, yeah.
Just congratulate
Thank
you
you.
on that.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Certainly so.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody?
Thank y'all. I really would appreciate your consideration on it, and we do need to get back together jointly, but, one way or the other, we got to get some planning going, and so, if we have to readjust our budget somehow, some way, we can do some of that, but I'm hoping we can work together, to find some funds, so.
Joint meeting's a good place to.
It is, but, to get this going, if Mr. Carter and Drew, are you going to get back in touch with me? Do I need to come back to a board meeting?
Be glad to get in touch with you. We can go out and cause each other to lose more hair. That'd be great.
That'd be all right.
So,
Won't you just touch base with me?
I'll
Yeah.
touch base.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Y'all have a
Thank
good
you,
evening.
sir. You too. Next is a historic designation, Mr. Brian Edwards.
Afternoon, and glad to be here this afternoon to talk about the historical. I've got a presentation, but I'm interested to know if there's just a few points. The county manager and I talked about it, and I think the singular point that he and I kind of touched on was the reference in the letter that you received talked about private property owners, and there was no reference to governmental buildings. I've got the information. I can address it that briefly if that's where you folks would be, or I'm happy to give you more of a background of where this whole program's been. But I'm sensitive to your time and your schedule, and so, Mr. Chairman, I would ask, you might just survey the board there. How much information are they looking for this evening, and we'll go from there.
It'd be good to understand that.
I think we're all aware of the history. I'm not interested in the history because the application's been made, but I'm looking at the implications for us.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not sure at what meeting the commissioners agreed to go ahead with this.
It was more than a year ago, Bobby, and I don't know that the commissioners agreed. There was a presentation just for information purposes.
Yeah, there was no vote taken.
No, there was no vote. Doesn't require a vote. Doesn't require a vote tonight. This designation is. Let me just give you a little perspective about what it is, and then we can decide at whatever point you've heard enough. You can tell me, and we'll go from there. The main point about the current program by the National Register puts no obligations on the private property owner, and it puts no obligations on the local government unless there is state and federal funding involved in it. So, there are three structures that are identified in this proposed district that are county-owned buildings. There's one that is a town-owned building. So, I think we just have to gauge it based on common sense and what makes sense. The main reason to do this is it does offer tax incentives for from federal and state for investments in historical properties. And that could drive some investment in our downtown area, which could certainly be beneficial. And so let me just touch on that part of it. Income tax incentives for the rehabilitation of historic structures are important tools for historic preservation and economic development in North Carolina. A federal income tax credit for the rehabilitation of historic structures first appeared in 1976 and today consists of a 20% credit for the qualifying rehabilitation of income-producing historic properties. Since 1976, over 3,000 completed certified rehabilitation projects have been reviewed by the State of North Carolina Historic Preservation Office, representing almost $2 billion in investment in historic properties. So it can have an impact. And most of the municipalities around us, West Jefferson, Wilkesboro, most towns have the historic districts. I think something that may be of concern is the National Register designation and the local historic designation. Let me just touch on that because there is a distinct difference in that. National listing should not be confused with local historic property and historic district designations. These designations are made by local governing board on the recommendation of a local historic preservation commission. This program of local designation is an option available to local governments under the North Carolina enabling legislation, General Statute 168-400. There is no direct correlation between national registration listing and local designation. So if we, in the first, it's kind of a layered approach. The first step is what we're talking about tonight and what this State Historic Preservation Advisory Group would be making a recommendation on. That places no obligations or restrictions on individual property owners or the local government unless federal. So if we accomplish that part of it, now we are eligible for the federal tax credits and also state tax credits for buildings that are for private property owners who are within that designated district. I really don't believe there's a downside to this first phase of it. And we're not obligated to go any further with it. If this first phase is approved and we make that district designation, that can be the end of it. There is the opportunity going forward for a local governing board. The county could do it, the town could do it, they could do it jointly, and create a historic commission. At that point in time, you follow the North Carolina general statutes and you operate the commission, and that would put more restrictive language into what could be done and how things could be done. But I think tonight it's important to not confuse the two. We're only talking about the national registration, and there's no obligations on private property owners or government owners unless there's federal or state dollars involved.
May I ask a question
Sure.
about that? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And we did have a conversation about it, but here's the one question I have. Courthouse right now is on the National Registry, but the other two facilities that were included in the letter are not. They are only a part of the district that is being proposed to be included.
That's correct.
Comment about there are no restrictions unless there are federal or state dollars. That's the question I bring up. If we have another event, if we have another earthquake, if we have any type of natural disaster, that we are again faced with repairing those facilities within this district. And if we are lucky enough to get assistance from the state, as we have in this current situation, if this historic district basically evolves, then I am guessing by that comment that if we were to receive any federal or state monies to repair, renovate, or fix up those buildings listed, then there may be restrictions that follow due to the receipt of those funds.
I believe that's correct, Michael, and the courthouse would be anyway, because it's already there, so really we're talking about two additional structures that might be impacted, and I believe the answer to that would be yes, depending on the guidelines that came down, and depending on what kind of damage and repairs that you were doing. Now, the courthouse, the new courthouse, of course, is complete, and it's done, so I don't think you would expect anything coming up anytime soon on that. The other building, the Rufus Doughton Law Building, is, at this point in time, if it was the decision of this board to remove that building, that would be totally within your realm to do that.
I only bring that up because of the, and I'll call them hurdles, the hurdles that we went through to make the repairs to the courthouse because of its listing and designation. The other two do not have that designation at this point, but if something were to occur and we receive federal or state funding, then there are quite possibly the same or different hurdles to make the necessary repairs, since that would be a criteria.
Yes.
That's my clarification.
Bobby?
Basically, that was my question. So, I need to understand, I'm a little slow. You know, Brian, I'm slow.
Okay.
What we went through with the current courthouse, the old courthouse, took a long time and cost us a lot of extra money to repair the roof that was leaking and several other things. I don't want that to happen to what I call the community building, or the annex courthouse. And the Rufus Doughton building has got so much history behind it. If we go in and we are designated either, I think what you're looking at is the state or the federal, then the windows have to be made the same way, the paint colors have to match.
Well, we don't have that level of information because we don't have a local historic district that would be involved in that. So it would involve some oversight by a federal agency, yes, to answer your question. Now, it's my opinion that very likely either one or both of those buildings would likely be scrutinized regardless of whether we have this district or not, because that building, the community building, dates back to the late 30s and early 40s, and it's very possible that if you were receiving state or federal money for repair or alteration, they likely are going to look at that regardless of this designation. So my opinion is it's not going to impact you in any significant way. I think that community building would be certainly evaluated on that basis, whether it's in this district or whether it's designated.
I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
But I personally think that's an answer for the attorney to come up with, because I don't want to go through what we've already been through.
I think the answer, Bob, is yes. I think the answer is yes. I mean, I don't know that the attorney, Heather, it's my opinion that either one of these buildings would be scrutinized if you're using state or federal money to make a significant alteration or repair to those buildings, regardless of whether or not it's in this designated district.
How can that be if it's not designated and it's not already registered as a historical building?
Well, because the people who are funding this, if they're looking at it in a broad scope, as they likely will be if you were asking for funds to do something significant to the community building, those folks who are funding it are very likely going to ask about the historical significance of that building.
We've already done a lot to it. I didn't say that.
Well, what's done is done. I mean, that's
It's not a historical building right now.
no.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Did you let me just ask, were there federal and state funds involved in the remodeling?
Bank funds.
Yeah.
Which facility?
The annex, courthouse annex,
Funds.
state funds. So, and, if they didn't ask questions then, likely not. There's no formal action required by this board. You do have the opportunity to object, and the county manager's got the letter that talks about submitting an objection if you did object to it. So
It was in October 15th?
October the 14th is the date
Deadline.
that it would be being reviewed. Yes. I would just generally say I think it does offer an opportunity for investment in our downtown community. It could address some of these older buildings that need to be rehabilitated. I think from a practical sense, it's not very likely that buildings that are connected downtown are going to be torn down or altered in some way that would not qualify for the historic credits. If we were in a different urban area and they were demolishing buildings and building new buildings, be a different story. I don't think that's the situation here in Sparta, and I don't see that happening in Sparta, that our downtown area, that people would want to just remove. All of these buildings are connected other than the courthouse, Choke Motor Company, and the community building. Otherwise, they've all got common walls and not any high probability that those buildings would be demolished. But it would offer an incentive for people to invest in these buildings and do some improvements, which we could certainly use.
Sir, go ahead.
I don't get from the consensus that it's any kind of concern over the district, but what I'm hearing is there may be concerns over some of the facilities within the district. So is it possible, after they have time to digest and think and talk, if there's an objection to a building within the district, but not the building itself, does the letter of objection allow for a building to be, asked to be removed from that district without opposing the district as a whole?
I don't know the answer, but I'll certainly find out.
Because I think that's what I'm hearing, at least from a couple, is not an opposition to the district,
Right.
but maybe thoughts on the facilities located within it.
Well, and the lady, the consultant who prepared the study, identified, the areas. I think the simplest way to do that would be to remove the community building. The courthouse is already in. Nothing's going to change about that. Then you got the Rufus Doughton office. Not much is going to change there. Even if you had to match the windows and do some things, that's pretty minimal. So the only real exposure to that point, I believe, would be the community building, and that would be a matter of altering the map, the district map.
What about the rock wall in front of the old courthouse, in front of the Rufus building? Does that come under this preservation?
It says structures, and in my opinion, a wall would be considered a structure, in my opinion, yeah. But I can find out. It says buildings, structures, objects, sites. So it's pretty comprehensive. I would think that the wall would be.
I just know when Streetscape was presented, everybody wanted that wall to stay.
Yep.
And I think everybody on this board wants it to stay.
Well, I think the wall, if it needed to be repaired, would be restored in a similar fashion. And we've got a great example right down there where Mike Wagoner lives. His wall fell into the road, and it has been reconstructed. And if you can tell the difference between the new and the old, then you're going to have to be looking pretty close. So those walls can be rebuilt. And Mike told me that that was at a very reasonable cost. It was not an issue at all for him, and he chose to restore the wall. And I actually had a price a couple of years ago on the courthouse to rebuild that wall and reconstruct it out of the similar stone, and it was not a prohibitive number at all. I think it was $40,000. John, do you remember? We had some discussion about that. Was it $40,000? Something in that neighborhood, $40,000 to replace that wall, and that included steps and sidewalks and other things as well.
Other questions?
I'll find out, question Bob and Michael about that, and we'll let you know. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, appreciate it. Put on down to general business. Ms. Rita Miller.
Evening. Some late applications that I wanted to bring to this meeting instead of waiting till the third Monday. They're all either elderly, disabled, or disabled veterans late applications. So if it's okay, I'll just go through those one at a time. Okay. So the first one is Presnell. It is a elderly or disability exclusion that would have been approved had it been timely filed.
Approved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion here, second. I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. I vote.
Andrews, the reason for not being timely filed was due to illness and taking care of a parent.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion here, second.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Question.
Hang on, got a question.
How long can these late applications keep coming in?
December 31st.
The motion is second. All in favor? Raise your hand. 5-0.
Next one, Atwood, did not know about the exclusion or the deadline.
Recommendation.
Motion to approve.
You've approved him previously.
Got a motion to approve. Got a second. I'll second that. Any further discussion? All in favor? 5-0.
Next one, Dodson, did not know about the exclusion program.
Motion.
Move.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. 5-0.
Mardello, same situation, did not know about the deadline for the application.
Motion.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor? 5-0.
Next one, Hendricks Howard, same, did not know about the exclusion program.
Motion.
Move.
Second. Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor? 5-0.
And the last one, did not know about the exclusion program, but I have not been able to verify the disability on this one.
If I may, I saw a note back here that someone had contacted the doctor, but they would only do 2 forms.
They're in Virginia, they will not fill out the North Carolina certification of
But-
disability.
Based on that verbal communication, you would say that it is a existing situation, or
I can't really, I can't verify that.
running for office next time? You're talking like a politician.
Statute says that they have to have that North Carolina certification in order to receive the benefit of the program.
Motion to table until December, the last December meeting, to give applicant an opportunity to obtain the verification.
The motion to table till the last meeting in December. Do we have a second?
Or if they turn in a
Prior.
presentation
I'll bring it,
prior. Okay.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Not all in favor? 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. Solid waste clarification. Mr. Carter.
Chairman, members of the board, at your last meeting, we had some discussion about fees that were being collected at the transfer facility. And one item within that collection was a question about commercial haulers paying a tipping fee, which the answer was no for those that have residential service. What wasn't disclosed at that meeting was those individuals who are utilizing this commercial hauler to haul their waste off are actually paying their $98 residential fee for that disposal. So the answer to the question was, is there a charge at the transfer facility for that commercial hauler bringing that waste in, was no. What was not identified was that those individuals who utilize that private service are indeed paying their $98 residential fee. So I wanted to clarify that. Also, there was a brief discussion about how fees are collected, and we had a conversation about being collected by the yard or being collected by the ton. And if you remember, up until this budget cycle, a fee structure was in place that allowed a fee to be charged by the yard, which basically meant you bring a yard of feathers or you bring a yard of legitimate waste, and you got charged the same thing. The downside to that is when we were paying to dispose of it, we were paying strictly by the ton. So we corrected that when we adopted a new fee structure in this current year. It is now being charged by the ton as opposed to what was previously going on by the yard. And I just wanted to point that out, that was some information that needed to be identified and corrected, and I hope I've done that.
Thank you, sir. Questions for the county manager? Moving on down, inmate medical insurance, Assistant County Manager Drew Todd.
Every year we're asked to or not or 20 or 30. That's with the 10. Or 17.
I have a question for the county manager. How much did you budget for, sir?
Ask Drew to pull that. I guess my question would be, when is there a decision needed on this?
Well,
It's
yeah,
past due.
it's usually in September.
It's on them. I would ask that we allow time and bring this back up at your next meeting in October so that we can determine and identify the amount that we placed in the budget and see if there is a difference in how to adjust toward it.
Motion to table until the mid-October meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion here, a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not all in favor? 5-0. Creek Fire Department, Mr. David Higgins.
Okay, I come to not, what it is grant time for the fire department. And this is the worst grant year ever. Everything's been crazy. We still don't have our radios in We've had to apply for extension. We applied for extension on our turnout gear, which it come the day of the deadline, but still, we had extension on it, but it's just been a tough year all around. But anyway, what I'm doing, I come here tonight to ask for some money because everything just wham bound together, and we're not gonna get our money back for, we don't know when, because we're having to apply for extension, so we're not sure when we'll get our money back from the grant. But I put on there a couple things. The first one's a bill where we had 708 worked on. I just sort of showing you some stuff there. It was 2340. Had put a new tire on 702. It went bad, and $600 for it. It don't take long to add up. C.W. Williams, total for them, this is grant, $14,127. Shore Flow is $5,945. That's just for 1 hour bottle too. So I mean 1 pack. And mobile communications, that's where we're having a lot of problem with radios, and it's $8,043. And there's one that's not on there, and it's $3,000. That's for safety jackets, so it's not even on there because we don't know when we're getting them. May not even get them. So clothing. And what I come here tonight for is to ask about getting our what's left in last year's reserve fund for the, how much I got, Drew, you remember? A little over 14 from last year. And I was just wanting to see about getting the last year to help us out. We've got around $12,000 in insurance due this month, so it's going to take a whole lot there. We've got $7,000 on one, and then the other one, so it's going to be around $12,000 just for insurance. And a couple of nice gentlemen come by Department of Insurance. I think, well, they talked to y'all, might have called them, have them to check on us some stuff. But and anyway, we talked about general funds and all this stuff, and they said that, you know, a lot of counties don't hold any money, but the max that's legal to be held is 5% of your funds. And they said they did recommend that a lot of counties hold 5% back, but said that was the legal amount that they. So, and they was from the Department of Insurance. Well, they was real nice. They stayed about all day going through stuff, never found nothing wrong out there. So they checking more stuff. We just got in there. We've been checked and checked out. We've every time everybody's comes, always found everything fine. So, but we are here tonight. See if we can get that money from last year, and then this year's will start adding up again. So that's what we're here for, trying to help us out through a few hard times. Go ahead.
Feel on the board. Mr. John.
Just to clarify, you have not gotten any grant money this year because they haven't passed the budget. Is that right?
We've not got grant money because we've not got they won't issue a grant check until everything's finalized. Everything's in and paid for. They won't.
Okay, so
So
you need the 14,000 to pay this so that you can get your grant.
right, so we can get our grant money.
Grant was worth
The grant
35,
is total. The grant was 31,170.
31,170.
Yeah. So half of that, 15,585 roughly. So we just need it, and I mean, I'll be honest, we still not. We was gonna do the money giveaway like you boys in Piney done, but the way the corona fired up, we afraid of it. And when we was going to do the mudsling, they had the county sort of had 1,000 people limited at the fairgrounds, so we didn't do that. And it's just been another one of them years. It just really has. It's been a tough year on us again, and we've not got to do our fundraiser. We're selling some tickets right now and some little stuff, but it's not nothing big. But
You're gonna be able to do your drawdown.
no, we're going to do it in spring. We're just going to drop off. See, the school system's one thing. We have ours at the school. Can't use the school right now. So we called out to the Silver Dollar, and that's unavailable too. So, and the firehouse, it's just not big enough to to do what we need. And
You move all your trucks out and make it work.
well, we'd move them out, but it still won't hold 500 people. I mean, that's,
Be kind of hard feeding too.
yeah, it's just, we just don't have the, if we know the weather's good, we could set up a big tent and stuff, but
That's debatable.
you know how our luck is with that, so.
That's extra expense.
We, not many people's ever got rained out with a mudsling, but we have because it rained 3 inches. So that's one of them things that happen. But if y'all could help us, we'd greatly appreciate it.
You said your audit people came up there, everything was good on it.
Everything so far, they ain't found nothing yet.
Are they done?
This is what he said. He says, I may be back in touch and may never hear from me again. He said, if you don't hear from me, you know everything's good, so I ain't heard anything.
They give it a pretty good going over because they always do Piney Creek.
Oh, yeah, they,
They will send you a letter though.
he did not say either way. I'll be honest, he just said you may hear from him, you may not, but he didn't find nothing out there wrong when he was there.
Bobby?
How much in your budget did you set aside for maintenance?
I didn't bring that paper with me. Do y'all know? You don't know either. I don't know. I'll be honest, Bobby, I don't know. I'd have to.
I can't remember, but
I
I know
can't.
you had a line on.
Yeah, we did, and we had that in there, but right off the top of my head, I didn't bring it. Today's been one of them days anyway. My hip laid out today and didn't come in, and we had cattle out, and anyway, I got here. But I'm not asking for $12 million.
What's your grand total you're asking for?
Money left last year, 14.7. Yeah.
That's in our contingency from last year.
That'll cover one bill.
Yeah, that'd cover one bill. We're not asking for anything from this year, just last year.
Spend any maintenance money yet?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's just a couple of the late things. We have maintenance all the time. It's pretty much monthly on the maintenance.
You're gonna have stuff that's gonna tear up.
It's gonna tear up if you use it. Now, that's just the way it is. We have breakdowns and I mean, one night we got a suction hose run over, and that's $200, and, you just have this little stuff adds up to, before you know it, you got $1,000, and it's just, I just throwed them two bills in just to show you what. I mean, you think about it right there, one tire $600, but it was a front drive tire, so it had to go. We've got one now with the alternator out. We're fixing it hopefully tomorrow, get it done. We had to get the alternator. It's just some little something all the time because we don't have much, well, we don't have any new stuff. And Galax, we was down there the other night helping them. They was out and we was running rec calls for them, and they was telling me they've just ordered in the process of ordering a new ladder truck, and it's $1.5 million. And this fire stuff's unreal. It's unreal. $1.5 million. I mean, I couldn't imagine $1.5 million, but one man can set the truck up in 35 seconds once he pulls up on scene.
35 seconds.
35 seconds. He said they've been down there and practiced, and they can do it in 45. They've not got to the 35 yet, but 45 seconds is pretty awesome for a 102-foot ladder truck. If you could help us, we'd greatly appreciate it. It's just tough times, I'll be honest. It's just a lot of expense. Insurance is a big thing with us, too.
Oh, I'm sure. Every department faces that insurance battle.
You got to have it. That's just the way it is. There ain't no sliding around it nowhere. You've got to have insurance.
Money's in, that's last year's contingency fund, correct?
Yep.
Money's in there. All right, what's the feeling of the board?
Motion to approve.
Motion, here a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I would be curious to know how many of them were affected, or is it routine cost of doing?
Well, I mean, the pickup, when the oil started pouring, we pouring a gallon in it at a time as unexpected, so and the tire, it got busted out on the call. Well, it got a big jab in it, so that was,
It's total up to about 31,000.
yeah. But I just throw them in as like,
But that's in your budget, right?
yeah. But I wasn't even. I was bringing up the grant stuff. What I'm asking for.
But you can pay the bills.
Right, pay the
So
bill.
that you can get reimbursed.
Right. Because we got. I mean, like I said, this everything. It's just been a year. We ain't got to do the fundraisers like we usually do. Because
You got to pay the grant up front.
it's got to be paid up front before you get a dime. It all has to be paid.
All departments has to go through that same thing.
Yeah, that's same for everybody. Everything's got to be paid, and you have to send them a copy of your canceled check. So,
We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Right hand. Opposed? Vote.
Jimmy Cherry.
oh, you can have that if you need it. I made y'all a copy, gentlemen, ladies. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dave.
Drew, thank you. I know I've been there aggravating you today. Thank everybody.
Keep up the good work.
Thank her too. Thank you all very much.
Next up is cybersecurity. Mr. Carter.
Moment. On page 16 of your agenda, you have a one-page, basically a request form from I think I'd sent an email out to each of you prior to the meeting. But what this is an opportunity for Allegheny County to have the North Carolina National Guard Cyber Assessment Team to do some looking and reviewing and so forth of our cybersecurity and networking. And I made a few notes. I had a conversation with the individual who is a team member of this. And basically what I can tell you is, first and foremost, we talked about a lot of money here tonight and where we're going to find it all. Well, this is free, so we don't have to have that conversation. What they look at, among other things, is the network vulnerability. Their team looks at ways to improve the overall operations through their findings. They typically send a crew of about 3 to 5 members, and they will work on site for about 3 days. They follow the strict COVID protocol set forth by the CDC. They provide, and I just wrote down a few, they provide assessments on hardware, software, policies, procedures, and the overall governance of the system. They interview specific staff for comments and questions. They provide a priority listing of possible exposures and threats. And I just wrote down as an example ransomware and all that accompanies that. They have a participation after the 3 days of talk. They do virtual conference calls. They look at your Outlook, your web servers, and all the similar devices. They're not just looking at what maybe is in question, but they are going to identify what is being done correctly as well, so it's a evening out. They give the county a blueprint on what items need to be worked on and considered moving forward. They will not touch any of the data. They only review, the available information. So there's no tampering, there's nothing that they could do to, cause chaos with that. They also identified, I asked them for dates, and they gave me 4 sets of dates. They are booked until the end of this calendar year. The first available opportunity would be January 10th. There's a couple suggested dates in between, and their last date to now is February 14th. So this sheet that you have is just a little bit of information that we would supply to them to get them an understanding of what we have. But I would recommend consideration to allow us to enter into this service, again, at no cost. And and it's free, and we get some answers to some questions we've probably needed for some time. And I would even like to have the opportunity after reviewing the dates, because this will be mostly an internal thing, is to pick one of those 4-day windows that they described and move from there.
Make a motion. National Guard Cyber Assessment Team to conduct a vulnerability assessment of our programming here, free of charge.
Got a motion? Here a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? 5-0. Mr. Nick Hawks, run for clause.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good evening.
To pull this number in on a piece of paper. Okay. I'm requesting this afternoon that $22,006 be moved from the revenue side over to the expenditure side for the purchase of the toys that is raised through the Run for a Clause. The sheriff's worked hard on this all year, and all of this money would be donation money that's been raised, along with Mark running the 5K there. He's a champ through that. I opted to
Finished the same day I started.
You did. You did. That's right. I had just moved intersections. But anyhow, we'd appreciate it if y'all could get that moved over. So I know Christmas time's coming, and they need to get that moved over pretty quick, because I think last year through the COVID times that they had some problems with getting the amount of toys that they're looking at getting. So they want to get it moved as soon as they can so that they can start purchasing.
Do I hear a motion?
So move.
May I ask a question before we do that? I know April had looked into some of this as well. Is this a budget amendment? And I don't know the timing on it, Nick, but if it is a budget amendment, what I would ask is that we have the information, it seems like we have the support, but to allow us to bring that as a budget amendment for consideration at our next October meeting. So that we can do that in a formal process, and it'll have the numbers identified in both expenditure and revenues.
Okay.
Bobby withdrew the motion.
I'll motion to table until mid-month meeting.
Motion. Second.
Meet the time.
I don't know their time frame exactly. I know they're looking now, but the sooner the better. I do know that.
This gives us time to put it in that amendment form.
Okay.
And there it is.
All right.
The 18th.
That'd be the earliest we could do it. I know Marine Toys for Tots has been told, get your orders in now because of the shortage for Christmas. So time is of the essence, and the earliest we could do it would be the mid-month meeting, I believe.
18th.
Okay.
We've got a motion to table, second. All in favor? 5-0.
Just on a side note, while I've got you here, I did want to let you know, I don't think I've spoke with you as a board about the federal inmates. I think we've had them for 5 months now. We have billed, not received yet, but billed through the end of this month, $62,188.18. That number is not a bad number, considering, we've been on pause a time or two because of the location where we've been pulling some of these inmates out of. It's been on lockdown for COVID restrictions and stuff, but it's not a bad number.
Repeat that number.
$62,188.18. And I will go ahead and say that about 75% of this money billed is going to be net. It's off close. It's about 75% of that. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, sir.
May I
Thank you.
add- may I
County
add
manager
something to
smiling.
that?
Yes, sir.
Well, it was a glare, but what I would like, Nick and I have also talked about something that, we're talking about future budget thoughts as well. I've talked briefly, but some of this money that they are being able to receive for this program, I want to propose something to you in your cycle that may allow some of that to go back to the sheriff's department in some type of split of the revenues, because I think that could help the sheriff's office and it still helps the county. So I just want to put that plug in as well.
Absolutely.
So,
Thank y'all.
Well, members of the Recreation Commission.
I would defer to our attorney on that one. I think the conversation revolves around the identification of the Recreation Committee and the process long ago. I think I could sum it up by saying how that came about. And after some discussions, I think there has been some ideas and thoughts before the commissioners to consider reviving that committee. And I'll defer to Heather if there's
Really not much more to add. I think we've discussed this before, but the commission at this point it's still there. It's something that the commissioners had formally appointed members to, but it's been defunct for quite some time. However, there is business that needs to be taken care of by that commission, so the recommendation from me would be to reappoint the commission. And at this point, if you wanted to appoint outside members, or if the board wanted to appoint themselves to take care of the business of that commission, that would be recommended.
On the board.
Well, Mr. Chairman, a note, and I brought my reference, that there were 7 members of the original commission. So I would recommend that the 5 commissioners appoint themselves to the Allegheny County Recreation Committee. And to make up the 7, I have spoken with, and they have agreed to serve, if appointed, Charlie Scott and Margie Smith. That would give 7 replacements for the 7 original members. This would allow us, as members of the Allegheny County Recreation Commission, to transfer the land back into the county so that the title could be cleared up, and then have a separate vote to dissolve the commission, or the commissioners could dissolve the commission. But right now, we're hanging out there because the title of the property is Sam Brown's Mountain, and the property that's known as the Lions Club Pavilion and the tennis court is not in the title of the Allegheny County. It is in title of a committee that was formed by the commissioners. So to get around this, as recommended by our learned attorney, this is the way we got to do it.
I've had a discussion with Title Insurance Company Counsel and a couple other attorneys to try to determine how you could handle taking care of this, because technically the county commissioners appointed board members, so it is already technically county property, but the problem is it's actually titled to the commission instead of the county. So we need to correct that, because it really is county property. It just needs to be corrected so that the name is now not the Recreation Commission. And in order to be able to take care of it and handle signing any documentation, then we need the commission to be able to sign off on that. So we would need a commission to meet, we would need, them to make a recommendation as to how this was handled, and then for them to be able to sign to take care of the title. So it clears up any issues with the title, and that would be good in a sense that it's owned by the county, but then also if the county wished to dispose of any of that property at any time ever, you don't want to have an issue with the marketability of that title because it's held by a commission that might not exist. It really is technically county property, so this cleans up that title to make that clear.
Does it, do we know how many members it requires that?
I don't have any information other than that original, that one document that we received that had information on it. Since then, I don't think there's any way for us to figure out in old minutes where this would come up. It's just not, it's not digitized in that way where you'd be able to figure that out, and we don't have any information on it. So I don't know what the last numbers are that were on the commission. All we have is the original appointed members to the commission. So from there, then we don't have any information. So we can't even tell you who the last members of the commission would have been.
I'd be enough.
I don't think that there's any number that I know of that would be a problem.
According to this, in June of '67, there were 7 members.
We don't know the last number.
We don't know the bylaws. There's no bylaws, there's no minutes. But we do have a historical record that said that there's 7. Now, we can appoint the 5 commissioners and leave the other 2 blank because that still gives us a majority.
There's no, we don't know of any authority that would say otherwise for the number that would be required because we don't have any of the information of the last members that were on the commission. We don't have any minutes to be able to show that. So there's no information for it. So, I mean, I think adequate, or sufficient would be 5. I think that the recommendation or the mention of maybe 7 was only because the original members back in the 60s were 7. But we don't know how many were on the most recent commission because it was so long ago.
5 would make it.
The motion, Commissioner Evans.
Or do it?
Or is leave
Yeah,
a
that
number
would-
and not recommend it.
I
Well,
would-
if you want to go with 4, then Charlie's on the other side of the bulkhead, we could ask of him, and that will give us an odd number of 5.
I would make a motion.
We'll second that motion.
One question. It's been checked out good if there's no, how many members left or?
Maybe one, I can't get in touch with that one individual. I've tried multiple different ways to communicate, and I can't get that information or get that individual. So I don't know. I just don't have the information to be able to tell you. We've tried, and if we had the minutes that we could just look back on readily, that'd be easy. You might be able to tell, but we don't have that information either. So, we're going to do what we can do and then take care of this issue.
This is the avenue we gotta do to get to where we need to be.
Yes, sir.
Could you repeat?
For this, 5 members of this board to serve as the commission.
Motion, here a second.
Second.
Second, any further discussion? Not all in favor? Vote.
A few tonight, Mr. Chairman. First one is, we talked about the courthouse a little bit earlier tonight, but I have email confirmation that the roofing contractors will be on site tomorrow to deliver the materials. Now, of course, it's supposed to rain all week, but they did send a confirmation saying they would be on site. And that's what I'm going with at this. The second thing is, I know we just talked about some reserve funds with the fire department, and I will tell you that in the last couple of weeks, we've recognized a discrepancy in the fire contracts, and internally, our attorney, myself, Drew, April's involved in it to an extent. We're working to gather the necessary information to present to you at a future meeting. There's just some things we need to work out prior to that. So that will be coming up very soon. Third thing is I want to recognize Marge Gray, who is your Veteran Services Officer. Marge is now fully accredited and is able to submit for our veterans the paperwork or anything else. And he started in January of 21, and here at the beginning of October, well, actually in September, she received her full accreditation. So that's pretty quick and it's pretty good.
Most of the time it takes over a year.
Next thing is we've had numerous other items going on, but I believe, if I'm correct, Commissioner Bobby and Commissioner Michelle, you guys are on the insurance committee, and I'd like for you to be thinking about a date to have a meeting, because we have some items to talk about. Next thing is I think it was at your last meeting, we had an approval, maybe it was the one before, but in the last two meetings, you approved the Fairgrounds application packet with all the changes and modifications. The next step that this steering committee that I'm calling it will be doing is now we're working on a priority listing for the Fairgrounds. And as winter approaches, we'll be prioritizing things that can be done indoors as opposed to outdoors and vice versa with the weather. As you all are probably aware, we learned here in the last week that we have water issues out there. And that will probably, and no pun intended, that'll probably float to the top, because that is a concern that we need to take care of. And that will be something that we probably take some field trips, we work with the town, and we get a better understanding of just what's causing the problem. Lastly, we've had conversation in the past about ineligible expenditures out of the 911 fund budget. And if you recall, at the end of the previous fiscal year, we kind of had a get it paid or get tossed out of the grant cycle. We did. We got years past ineligible expenditures paid that were required prior to July, and then we had an additional month to pay the remaining. And if you recall, those two numbers were somewhere just shy of $70,000 that we had to find a way to pay for those previously ineligible funds. Everybody knows me by now. So I've just learned here in the last few days that we're actually having some difficulties in the most current year as well, with some additional what has been determined as ineligible funds. And we will be having a meeting later this week to get a handle on it. In the previous conversations, some of the information just wasn't made available. I guess I'll put it that way. In this discussion, the information should be available because it all happened within the previous year. So as we deal with that and come to a resolution on that, I'll certainly be back in touch with each of you. But comment that I made today is simply we can't continue this moving forward, period. Take that how you will. And that's my comment.
Thank you, sir. Chair going to call for a 5-minute recess. Call our meeting back to order. Next on the agenda, County Commissioner comments. Commissioner John.
God bless the USA.
Amen.
Done, that's it.
That's a first.
Well, now that you brought it up about the pandemic,
There you go.
that's all I have.
I also second that. God bless the USA, and thank you to our folks that worked the fair so hard this weekend. Travis, David Spicer, the Fairgrounds committee, the volunteers, everybody. Just seeing the smile on the kids' faces and hearing the laughter it was a great thing. That's all I've got.
Add on to Michelle's, that fair was a hit. Kids were hollering and screaming and having a good time. And a whole lot of parents, I think, or at least grown-ups. I don't know if they were parents or if they were just big kids out there, but it was good to see it. And I think everybody that participated, I hate the water issue that we had. They worked hard on it. Our folks did, and the town folks did, and it was manageable. I think it worked out well, but it's kudos to everyone.
Mr. Bobby.
There again, I'll start out with the fairgrounds. If anybody wasn't there, it was unreal how many people showed up Friday or Saturday night. And I'd like to thank the Woodies for opening up their parking lot across 220-21 to let us park. If it hadn't have been for them, we would have lost a lot of money. A lot of people had to park there. I think we've got work to do next year about having a better police presence to help with the traffic. Cars were backed up 15 or 20 deep going both ways on 21, plus people trying to cross the road at nighttime. That was the danger. But there wasn't a kid that wasn't smiling going in, and there wasn't a kid or an adult that wasn't laughing coming out. Everybody had a great time. The new sign worked. I think that's something that everybody will be able to utilize in the near future. Also, that Saturday, they had another soccer tournament, I guess, down here. The Veterans Park was packed full. People were parked out on the street. But what concerned me, they were parked over on the bypass. There was 11 cars at one time. Most of them were pretty well off the road, but there were some that were just about on the road. So, and I don't know how those people got into the soccer tournament. The big gates were locked, and I couldn't see any other way except walking way down the parkway and going around the gates. And I'll end by saying the Veterans Committee, the brick sale is up and going, so anybody that needs one, please purchase. That's all. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad a few of you didn't take but a minute, because I'm going to take a couple or three here to recognize a whole group of people that's really stepped up. And the Allegheny Ag Board has put all the fire business together. They're the ones that's behind the movement to get all this going. And I want to recognize the sponsors that came forth, and hopefully we don't miss anybody. The Bottomley Farms and Evergreen, Town of Sparta, Allegheny County, Allegheny TDA, S&T Grading, Adams and Ivy, Chili Waters Farm, Skyline Bark Communications, Glade Creek Animal Hospital, CarQuest, Allegheny Soil and Water, Wishon Evergreens, Foxfire Realty, Allegheny Farm Bureau, Bull Branch Farms, Upper Mountain Research Station, Carolina Farm Credit, New River Insurance, Napa, Twin Oaks Veterinary, Blue Ridge Tractor, Scott's Landscaping, B&T Tire, Hossey Farm Service, Genesis Healthcare, James River Equipment, Osborne's Accounting, Sparta Home Center, Seth Andrews Farm, Heather Klein Law Office, Allegheny Sheriff's Department, Sparta PD, North Carolina Highway Patrol, Allegheny Rescue Squad, the housekeeping ladies, and all the maintenance department for all the hard work everybody's done. And we really appreciate all the sponsorship. That was a great community, county effort to pull this thing off, and we greatly appreciate it. Well, that being said, that's all I've got. And
I think, Mr. Commissioner, Mr. Chairman, that it shows the potential of what the fairgrounds can do for the county.
it does, it really does.
That if we could have 5 or 6 events like that a year and then some smaller ones, I mean, that's what'll put Sparta on the map. That fairgrounds was just unreal.
There was plenty of people walking out of there that was very appreciative of what had took place and thanking everybody for putting it forward to make it come forth. And just a lot of good positive comments. Everybody was happy, and we had no altercations whatsoever with anything. Everything went off smooth, and just a very good, pleasant 4 days, you know. Anyway.
Motion to go into session for.
Got a motion to go into closed session?
County manager's getting ready to jump.
Just have one thing.
Yes, sir.
For the first item, which is 4, is economic development. I would ask that you invite Brian Edwards in for that portion. And for 6 personnel, I would ask that you invite April Ham in at that time. And what I think we could do is we allow the economic development portion to go first, and then I'll come and get April, and Brian will exit and April will enter. That's
All right. Request for close.
Heather, have anything?
I'm sorry, Heather.
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay, we've got a request for closed session under General Statute 143-318.11.A for economic development. And 6 for personnel, and we want Brian Edwards and April Ham included. Hear a motion?
I made the
Oh, you done
motion.
made the motion.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.